What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today, or I guess really late last night, we got a patch for Modern Warfare, and this was a big one, and there's a lot of really good looking stuff here in the patch notes. So today, we are going to be taking a look at this patch before and after. I'm not just going to be reading out patch notes. I know a lot of people do that. I always like to take my patch videos one step further and actually show you guys before and after whenever possible. Keep in mind, at this stage in the life cycle, I'm still really busy collecting all of the data on things, and therefore I don't have as much before footage for certain things, but I do have more than you might think. So let's just hop into this. The first thing with today's update is we have two brand new maps added to the game. The first one is called Shoot House, and this is a standard 6v6 map, although previously it was leaked that this was a gunfight map, and I could totally see this being a gunfight map as well. It is very, very small, but it is 6v6. This is definitely the smallest 6v6 map in the game now, and I think a lot of people that really like that constant action, they're really going to enjoy this map. As for the other map, this is actually a ground war map, and this one is called Krovnik Farmland. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get any gameplay for you guys for this particular video. There are some issues right now with ground war after this patch where lobbies just aren't starting. Infinity Ward is aware of that, and they are working on a fix for it. But at the time of me recording this video, at least, I haven't yet experienced this farmland map. Additionally, with this patch, they did bring Hardpoint into rotation, which is excellent to see. I know a lot of people absolutely love playing Hardpoint. But now let's get into the changes and fixes, and the first thing is they've just made a lot of stability improvements, and they fixed a lot of really isolated bugs that you probably haven't even experienced before, or they're very rare sort of bugs. Of course, I will leave a link to the patch notes down below if you want to check out all of those things, but mainly with these videos, I like to focus on the things that you actually see on a regular basis. Speaking of which, something that you may have noticed already is they have reverted the sprint and the tactical sprint speeds back to where they were in the beta. So that does confirm that they actually did slow them down from the beta, which is what a lot of people suspected, but I didn't really have any proof of it, so I've never really mentioned it in the video. But yeah, apparently you were sprinting slower in the full build of the game than the beta. They have reverted that back to the beta value, which is awesome to see. Next up, there was a bug in Search and Destroy where the progress of bomb defusal was actually being displayed for enemies, so they could just sit there and look at the bomb icon, and then they could see when you started defusing and come and kill you, which was definitely broken for Search and Destroy. They have fixed that particular bug. Also, if you guys remember my video on suppressors from last week, pre-patch, if you had Ghost and a suppressed weapon, anytime you fired that suppressed weapon, it would deactivate Ghost for 4 seconds. So if the enemy had a UAV up, you would be popping up on the radar even though you were using Ghost and a suppressor. Apparently, that was actually an unintended bug according to these patch notes, which I didn't know it was unintended. But in either case, that has now been patched, so if you have a suppressed weapon and Ghost, it will no longer deactivate that Ghost perk when you fire, and this means you will never show up on the enemy's radar if you're using Ghost and a suppressed weapon unless they have an advanced UAV up. Now, the next thing in the patch notes is they nerfed the riot shield a little bit. Pre-patch, if you're using a throwing knife or a thermite combined with the riot shield, you wouldn't really be exposing much of yourself to throw those items. You could basically throw them around the side of the shield. Now, you would expose yourself slightly. Unfortunately, I don't have any pre-patch footage of this, but now they've patched it so that shield will go right on your back as you throw those pieces of equipment, so you'll have at least a brief window of vulnerability, which is nice to see because it was quite frustrating running into people using a riot shield and a knife because there wasn't much you could do in many cases. After that, we got a few nerfs to the claymores. First off, if you shoot an enemy claymore, even if you don't have EOD, it will no longer deal lethal damage to you. So if you're standing outside of the trigger radius, but you shoot that claymore, post-patch, it can still hurt you, but it shouldn't be killing you if you have full health in core game modes. Additionally, they reduced the trigger and damage radius on the claymore, and reduced the damage width to better match the trigger width. And this is really nice to see. There were a lot of situations where you could be standing kind of right beside a claymore, but nowhere near that cone that was being displayed by the lasers. And then you would shoot that claymore thinking you would be countering it, and it would just blow you up and kill you anyways. Well, technically, yes, that would be realistic. Claymores are quite deadly if they're even just in the same room as you. When it comes to game balance, it was just too much in my opinion, so I am glad they toned that back a little bit with the claymores. Next up, finally, the battle chatter has been fixed, so when your character yells contact or enemy spotted or something like that, none of the enemy players can hear that anymore, which is really, really nice to see because that was leading to a lot of frustrating situations. Additionally, they did restrict the cone at which your character will yell enemy spotted or contact when an enemy is appearing on the screen. Previously, you could see like a few pixels of an enemy's foot way off on the right hand of your screen, and it would yell contact, and then you'd be like scrambling trying to find out where your character just saw that enemy. Now it's going to be much more restricted, so you've got to be looking more or less right at the enemy for that to be happening. After that, they nerfed the mounting mechanic a little bit. Again, unfortunately, I didn't have any pre-patch footage of mounted recoil with any of the guns. Just know, though, you don't get quite as much of a recoil reduction while mounted, although you are still getting some recoil reduction while doing that, so it still might be worth it for you in some situations. On that same note of recoil, they have changed it, so now your recoil will be the same whether you're standing, crouched, or prone, unless of course you're using the bipod attachment, but excluding attachments, it'll be the same standing, crouched, or prone, which is good to see because there was a bug on many of the weapons where if you were crouching, you would actually get more recoil than you would get if you were standing. So now it's just flat across the board for all of the guns. As for EOD, this did get a little bit of a buff. Now it should be impossible for you to die to a single lethal explosive if you're at full health. Previously, there were some situations if you were standing like right on top of a frag grenade or a C4 or really close to a claymore, there were situations where you could still die from full health while using EOD. And now that shouldn't be happening to you anymore, which is great news. If you're using the counter to explosives, I think it should always be keeping you alive from those explosives. This brings us to the next thing, and this was another adjustment to the lighting, and they basically just added a little bit more of a glow to enemy character models when you're at a distance and they're in a dark area. A great example of this is looking into the rug shop on Azir Cave, or Yellow, whatever you like to call that building. Previously, this enemy would be nearly invisible to you, aside from their red name tag popping up. Now you can see they actually glow pretty bright, and you shouldn't have a problem spotting enemies in dark areas anymore. Moving on to the next adjustment, this was to the footsteps. And with this, once again, they've increased the occlusion percentage to filter footstep sounds behind geometry. So this means if an enemy is behind a wall or on the other side of a wall, you shouldn't be able to hear their footsteps quite as loud anymore. But let's have a listen to pre-patch as well as post-patch for this. Now personally, just like with the last patch where they mentioned this particular change, I didn't really notice much of a difference pre-patch and post-patch with this occlusion. But on top of this occlusion change, we also got an adjustment to footstep volume at a distance. So again, we're going to have a look at pre-patch and post-patch with the different stances, crouching, standing, and sprinting. The main thing to focus on here is not so much the volume up close, but the range at which you're able to hear the footsteps initially. Let's have a listen. So with this, yes, I could definitely hear a pretty clear difference at a range as far as the footstep volume, and that is a great change in my opinion. You won't be able to hear people stomping around like crazy at an extreme distance away, even if they're sprinting. But at the same time, enemy footsteps should be just as loud when they get really close to you, and I think this was a good step in the right direction when it comes to footstep audio. Yes, you'll still have time to prepare for people as they're sneaking up on you if they're within the same room, but you're not going to be able to pinpoint people from a distance as easily anymore. Now, I should also mention that they did say for the next update, they are going to make crouching and aim down sight movement significantly quieter when it comes to footsteps, and that's going to be another great step in the right direction. Moving on to challenges, apparently with this update, your challenges should now be displaying properly, because previously they weren't really displaying any progress in many situations, even though they were technically tracking in the background most of the time. Now they should actually be tracking for you, I think at least, or at least that's what they say in the patch notes. Additionally, with one particular camo challenge, the kills after reload challenge, they made that a little bit more forgiving, so you have a greater window of time to get that kill after a reload in order for it to count towards this challenge, which is really nice to see. I know a lot of people are really struggling with those kills after reload challenges. And also for launchers, they will be giving you XP now if you shoot down kill streaks. Previously, you would only get XP with them if you were killing players directly. And this brings us into the weapon changes, and there were a decent number of weapon changes here. First off, with the 725 shotgun, the Beast has been nerfed. It's still quite a good shotgun, I would say, but you're not going to get nearly as many consistent one-shot kills at range with this. Because first off, they increased its aim down sight and its hipfire spread, so you don't get quite the same benefit while aiming down sight when it comes to your pellet spread, which is nice to see. And on top of this, they decreased its damage range. Now, just as a comparison, pre-patch, you could get a one-shot kill consistently without attachments with the 725 at about 15 to 16 meters. Post-patch, that has been cut down by a couple meters. It's somewhat noticeable. It's about a 13-meter range now. This appears to be primarily due to the increased hipfire spread, though, so it's not necessarily that the damage range is affecting this so much. It's more so you're unable to hit as many pellets as consistently. But overall, this should be a fairly noticeable nerf. You are going to get fewer consistent one-shot kills at the more extreme ranges for that shotgun. And I think that's great news. It seems like they definitely didn't destroy the 725. It's still a very solid shotgun up close. It's just not going to be quite as crazy as it was pre-patch. Next up, the M4 got a reduction to its damage range a little bit. And as you can see here, its 4-shot kill range was reduced by roughly 15%. And on top of this, they added a 6-shot kill range. Previously, it would be 5 shots to kill out to infinity. Now it's got a 6-shot kill range beyond 50 meters. This also happened with the Kilo 141 and the M13. Unfortunately, I didn't have the pre-patch ranges for those, but just know now at really long ranges, they will also be a 6-shot kill. And also, for the assault rifles, the patch notes claim that there was an increase to the hipfire spread across the board on assault rifles. But in my testing, I'm just not seeing this. If we look at pre-patch and post-patch, whether I'm standing still or moving at full speed, the hipfire spread appears to be identical here. So it seems like that particular patch didn't take hold, or maybe the patch notes were wrong or something. But in either case, the hipfire spread appears to be the same for the assault rifles. Also for the M4A1, it did get a small increase to its recoil. You can see the pre-patch and post-patch here. Not a major change by any means, but a little bit more recoil added to it. As for SMGs, they got an increased movement speed across the board, and this bumped it up about 1 to 2 percentage points on that scale of 100% being the knife movement speed. And on top of this, they got an increase to their aim down sight movement speed, so strafing while aiming down sight, and this was a very noticeable increase. This was like a 15% bump up, which is quite massive, so you'll be able to strafe side to side with SMGs much more effectively post-patch. Additionally, with SMGs, they stated there was a small reduction in sprint out time. This was actually a pretty big reduction. Your sprint out time has now been reduced by about 25% across the board for SMGs, and therefore they have a sprint out time of about 130 milliseconds rather than 170 milliseconds pre-patch. As for the Uzi in particular, this did get an increase to its damage range. Unfortunately, I didn't do any pre-patch testing on SMGs when it comes to ranges yet. Just know that you should have slightly better ranges with the Uzi. As for LMGs, all of them got increased hipfire spread, so a nerf to their hipfire, as well as range reductions. Again, didn't have pre-patch values for the ranges on LMGs yet. Additionally, with the MG34 in particular, they slowed down its aim down sight speed a little bit by about 10%, which is quite strange. I didn't really think the MG34 was particularly powerful pre-patch, but they did slow its aim down sight time down a little bit. And this just brings us to the pistols, which got an increase to their movement speed as well. And again, this was bumped up by about 2 to 3%, which is a pretty big increase to movement speed. And just like with the SMGs, they got a reduction to their sprint out time. And now they have a sprint out time of just 100 milliseconds, which is very, very fast. On top of that, they did get an increase to their damage range. Again, I didn't have any pre-patch values collected for those damage ranges on the pistols, but just know they have better damage ranges now. So with that pretty much covers it for all of the important changes that were made to multiplayer within Modern Warfare. However, there were also a ton of fixes for Spec Ops, which is great to see because pre-patch Spec Ops was just a buggy mess. In some cases, it was just impossible to complete them at all. They have fixed a ton of those bugs. Actually, every bug that I personally have experienced was listed as being fixed in the patch notes, so I'm definitely ready to hop in and give it another go, and hopefully it won't be nearly as messed up as it was pre-patch. But with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Again, if you want to check out the patch notes, I will leave them linked down below. As for my thoughts on this patch, I think this is a massive leap forward for the game. Did it fix absolutely everything that I feel needs to be fixed? No, but then again, I didn't expect that to happen all in one patch. In any case, it's a great step forward to the game, and at this point, I really feel like 1 to 2 more title updates, and I think this game is going to be in a very good place. But of course, that's just my opinion. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what did you guys think about this patch? Was there anything that really stood out to you as something you really like about the patch or dislike? Just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.